there's a helpful reminder coming from the book on page 22, and we're at the bottom of page 4 of the notes for 1.2. For those of you that need a reference point, if you're skipping around the videos looking for some particular information, which is great, we've talked about that. Oh, pardon me. And they're talking about adding and subtracting fractions with identical denominators, and that's where you can just go ahead and combine the tops, combine the bottom, or combine the tops using addition or subtraction, keeping the bottom, the denominator, that same value. If it's unlike denominators, we want to do what we did up above, and that is to go ahead and find the least common denominator, otherwise known as the LCD, the least common denominator. And then write equivalent fractions so when people talk about equivalent fractions, that's a way of describing what we were doing. We were using that strategic value of 1 to multiply top and bottom by the same number, which doesn't change the value, so they're equivalent, but it gives us a denominator that's matching so we can work with it. And you'll write equivalent fractions that will then have like denominators. Then you can go ahead and add across the top or subtract across the top, whatever you need to be doing at the time. So now let's look, we're deep into the assignment now. We're at problems 198, and just as we have been talking about, eventually fractions and variables are going to collide here. This is the point here. We need to be able to be comfortable with fractions in the world of algebra. Now, we're not at the point yet where the variables are actually a part of the fraction, meaning they're in the numerator or in the denominator. That comes later. Right now, we just need to be able to move things along and still have fractions involved. So you're going to recognize the directions, hopefully. Determine if the given number is a solution to the equation. We had problems like this in section 1. What that means is they're going to give us a number here. In this first example, they give us 4, and they want to know, is it a solution to the equation? And to recall how to do that, we are going to evaluate that number. That's another way to say determine if the given number is a solution. Evaluate it, which means we're going to substitute in for our variable x, or in the try problem you'll be substituting for y. Evaluate, substitute in for x, and see if you get a true statement. In other words, you have some number equal to that same number. Okay? If you don't get a true statement, it's not a solution. Do you get a true statement? It is a solution. So let's look at what happens here. We're going to take 4 and replace x with 4. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. Please, when you're doing the practice problems, take a moment to copy the actual problem from the book exactly as it's written. Don't try to do any steps in between what you're seeing on the book and what you're putting on the page. Biggest source of little mistakes that then you don't recognize it. You go all the way through all this work, paper, time, energy, get to the back, get the problem wrong, turn around, think you don't know how to do it. Turns out to be a copying error. So help yourself out. Copy it directly, double check that it matches in the book, and then go ahead and start the problem. So the way I start these is I go ahead and rewrite everything I see, but leave a workspace where the variables are. So this actually becomes 3 times x minus 4. I'm just adding an extra layer of parentheses here to give myself that multiplication times x. So 1/2 x minus 2 plus 3 equals 3/8 times a big quantity 3x minus 4. And again, instead of the x, I have some blank spots where I can put my value of 4 in. So we're trying x equals 4, and I'm just going to remind myself that I'm just testing this, okay? I'm just testing to see if it's true. So now we're going to go ahead and simplify on the left side, simplify on the right side, see if we get a true statement. Order of operations says to do inside the parentheses first. If you had an instinct to distribute that 1/2 across, Beautiful. Distribution, we'll deal with that a little bit later. You should get the same answer if you're doing it right, so feel free to follow that instinct and go for it. We'll continue with what we officially know right now, which is order of operations. 4 minus 2 inside the parentheses is 2, and we've got the 1/2 on the outside. One way to learn how to read math, oh, and we also have a plus 3 on the right hand side there. Ooh, almost lost it in the excitement there in the crowded paper. As you're able to read mathematics, you're looking to see how things change from line to line to line. I try to use color as best I can to show what's happening here, but look at what's different. Instead of the x, there's a 4. Why? Well, we substitute in. Now instead of the 4 minus 2, there's a 2. Why? Well, we're starting to simplify. You can kind of retrace your steps. Some of you may have access or maybe purchased the solutions manual, and it gives you these steps. I have some opinions on that. One, eventually you're going to need to fly solo. Eventually you're going to have to let go of that solutions manual and do these problems on your own. That's the only way you're going to get it to stick. 2, they can be a helpful tool. If you just are on your own and you can't see how to start or you get stuck, they're a great way to get unstuck or at least get started on problem. My third thought is they're written by humans, and often it's not the same person who actually authored the book or wrote the problem. So they may have a different approach to solving it than you're used to. And because they're human, they could make a mistake. So if you're relying on the solutions manual to kind of follow along, remember that if you think you've come across an error, before you try to make your world fit the solutions manual, if you think you did the problem right, just highlight it, bring it to class, we'll check it out, make sure, okay? And that way you don't spend a lot of time or brain cells fretting over whether or not the solutions manual is really leading you in the right direction. Okay, sorry I got sidetracked there. Don't get me started, soapbox. So we've got 1/2 times 2 plus 3 on the left-hand side here. Now, order of operations says 1/2 times 2 needs to come next. And 1/2 times 2 can be written as 1/2 times 2 over 1. Again, I'm just showing every little detail so you don't miss a thing here. Multiplying top times top, bottom times bottom. The 2's are going to cancel. You're just left with 1 times 1 over 1 times 1, which is just 1, plus 3. And that should equal 4. So the question is, will 4 show up on this right-hand side? Will we have a true statement? So let's look at that. Right-hand side, we've got 3/8 times 3 times 4 minus 4. Let's deal with the inside of the brackets here. Multiplication, the 3 times 4 is going to come first. And that becomes 12 minus 4. So that was our first change. We just did the 3 times 4. Next, inside the brackets, we have 3/8 times 12 minus 4 is 8. And then that can be written as 3/8 times 8 over 1. And you end up canceling the 8's because it's the same top and bottom. It's all in the family of multiplication. And you're left with 3 over 1, or just 3. So we ended up with 4 on the left-hand side, 3 on the right-hand side. These are not equal. This is a false statement. So no, 4 up here, 4 is not a solution to this equation. It does not make this equation true. So take a moment to copy, note any questions, talk it through what we just saw. Notice no new skills here. We're actually combining the previous skills of evaluating, substitution, and then our fraction skills from this new section. Try number 98. Pause that video. Okay, if you haven't had a chance yet to try number 98, go ahead and pause it, because here comes the answer. Yes, 1 1/3 is a solution to the equation. 1 1/3 is a solution. Okay, we'll see you at page 5.